Hello. Good afternoon, evening, whatever it is right now. I'd like to call the work session for March the 5th, 2020 to order, and I will go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Cole for the items of information.
Thank you, Mr. Adjie. Our first item under effective leadership is our financial update, so I'll turn over to Ms. Preston for that.
So there hasn't been any other emails from what's going on to reaffirm the first one that talked about them increasing the funding formula by $2,000, the state-based salary schedule. Which is surprising because usually, I mean, after the first one comes out, then they come out pretty regularly. So, you know, it could mean that, you know, they're fighting over what to do. But I went ahead and did a scenario, basically, that's the ones in yellow, of what it would look like for us if it was passed. So, you know, as you know, we start out the year with $11 million. And as of right now, until I get an update from the tax assessor, I was going to go with 2% increase in the property values with a 98% collection rate, because we've been pushing 99% for several years now. So that would only bring 1.4 million. If the state does what they're talking about doing for the funding formula, I've got an estimate on that of 3.5, but that's a pure guesstimate. Next year, the TRS rate is going down in our favor. What the employer contributes on behalf of the employee, that's going to save us 1.5 million. Step increases for certified are 1.1, so for non-certified are almost $500,000. Potential $2,000 increase for the state salary schedule would mean about $2.7 million for us. They also talked about a 5% raise for bus driver base salary again. So I did a calculation on that for 5% for them and 2% for the rest of the staff, not on the teacher salary schedule, and that's a little over $500,000. And then we have been, as a cabinet, looking at supplements for extracurricular jobs and kind of comparing ourselves to other districts in the RESA and other medium-sized systems. And we've looked at athletics as well as curriculum. And at some point I'll give you a list of the breakdown of that. But the cost of all of them, we would like to increase the budget by $196,800. So we're in the middle of looking at staffing right now, and again this year we've got several vacancies as of right now. And if you'll look on the financial report in a minute, I'll show you. We're saving money again for salary benefits because we just the vacancies is generating savings. But we're going to look at class sizes again, and I think we do have a little bit of room to maybe attrition some positions at the elementary level, which will help us a little bit, and maybe restructuring some of what we do with our Title I money so that maybe General Fund can shift some homeroom teachers to the Title I. And that would be a savings to help offset budget deficit, because I really don't like that estimated any fund balance at this point. Just for your information, millage rate would bring in $4.4 million, and half a mil would be about 2.2. That would give us a balanced budget. Any questions? Oh, we didn't need to. That piece at the bottom is from last year's budget page. I meant to cut that off before I sent it to you. I'll cut that off next time.
We are planning to have a finance committee, if that's okay, Mr. Holsey, probably not, if not this month, coming up for sure in May.
Yeah,
and we would
do
do
budget hearings.
as our first budget hearing would be probably likely the 1st of May, and so we'll.
And unfortunately, I won't get good numbers from the tax assessor until after the deadline for Senate Bill 46, which is tax deadline April 15th. So I really won't have a good estimate on that 2%. Hopefully, will be higher until the May meeting, really.
All right, if there's no questions, again, still really early in the game because we're not getting a lot of information, but that should clarify soon, hopefully. All right, thank you, Ms. Preston. Our next area under Focus Area 2, impact cycles, or its coherent instruction system is impact cycles. So, Ms. Lewis, you can give us a little update about what you're doing with that.
Sure. So, just a little background information for everyone else. Back in 2010, 2011, our administration put in a practice where we were checking our schools. We were inspecting what we were expecting. So, at that time, and I think Ms. Bennett, you were a principal then with me, it was a process that was 45 to 55 slides the principals were creating to present to show that we knew what was going on in our schools. And that's a good practice, so we held the practice. However, through time and through best practice, we tried to streamline it because principals were spending so much time preparing reports that the data was already there. So the last thing we wanted to do was create more work for our principals. So I want to show you the last SSR that we did, which stands for School Status Report. And I asked Dr. Akins to come, and we borrowed his. He always does a very thorough job. And I just want to very briefly go through the slides to kind of get you an idea of what we did and where we're going to go with this. We asked for staff attendance. Keep going. We asked for an update for student attendance. We went through their discipline reports, and all of this can be found online. We looked at drills to make sure schools were practicing all their drills, fire drills, code blue, code yellow, code red. We looked at grade distribution. We asked our principals to bring up different grades, especially in our 4th and 5th, to see if we're having too many A's, too many F's, what subject areas. So we were really drilling down. We were looking at teachers. So we were looking at all the pieces that go into the classroom. Next, we were looking at the teaks and leaks, looking at observations. Are you on time? Are you behind? How many were on full plan? How many were on flex? Meaning that some teachers were observed twice, some teachers were only observed once, along with their walkthroughs. Kind of getting that pulse check for our leaders to make sure we're on time. Then we were looking at milestone data. Keep in mind with these SSR reports, days that our cabinet and our administrative team would go out. So it would be myself, Dr. Whitehead, Amy Akabachi, someone from HR, Ms. Haywood, Dr. Kim Gabriel. We would all go there as support pieces, so we all had a piece to have a conversation with. And Dr. Whitehead was certainly instrumental in looking and breaking down the data of where they were and how they performed the previous year and how we're looking at data this year of how we need to change instruction. And Title I, of course, is huge. Make sure that we're keeping all the rules and being compliant with all the laws, and how we are writing our school plan that mirrors our district plan to make sure we're following through and we're being wise with our money as well as being successful with the goals that we set. MTSS is a huge piece because actually it has changed. We used to call it the RTI, and this is a process that we look at student and where they are, Tier 1, Tier 2, and I think you've heard several presentations on that, but how it's changed, we used to look at children that are in Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Now the State Department has given us guidelines in a different framework where we're actually tiering interventions. So that's why what we're doing curriculum now has been leveled for our teachers and our staff.
Explain that. I thought I had a grasp of it before.
So let's say a long time ago it's called RTI.
Right.
Not a long time ago, maybe 2 years ago.
2 months ago.
It's called the RTI. All right, so there's 10 students. Out of the 10, 8 of them are Tier 1. So 8 of the Tier 1 means that they are all being taught in homeroom, reader's workshop. Okay, so Tier 2, Jerry and Linda are in Tier 2 because they need a little more support. So
don't put me in Tier 3. I see what you're saying.
So they're in Tier 2. That means we might have an EIP teacher coming into the classroom, pulling a small group to the back table. They're getting a little bit more than the rest of the class. All right, so we're tiering our children.
Right.
So Tier 3 would be, I'm going to skip, I'm going to go to Virgil and Marcus. So they might be Tier 3. That means they need individual prescriptive services. That means they're going to be pulled out and given 180, whatever services that we provide for those students, okay? Now, the goal is to get the children out of those tiers as much as possible. Now, it's not so much the children that are tiered. Now the State Department says, hey, we want to see where you are with your instruction.
Right.
So you are no longer considered tier 2, but your intervention, the program that we use, we can say systemically, this EDGE, LLI, this is our 2-tier intervention. So the children can go in and out. So see, you're not like stuck in a tier, but the intervention is that level. So Read 180 is a tier 3,
Okay.
but children can come in and out.
All
And
right.
that way, we're hoping that the label of children and disabilities and learning, all that is changing, that we actually move children and they don't get stuck in that hole. Okay? Does that help you? All right.
Yeah.
And so at this process, we actually look at children that are in their schools. This is the perfect time for you to share kind of what that looked like at your school, because y'all did a great job with that.
Well, we did that. So we look at the breakdown of the students that are we're having to shift our mindset as well, moving from students that are considered a tier to interventions that are considered a tier. So we're shifting that mindset. But really what we did is we looked down at, we started looking at our interventions and saying, okay, well, what interventions do we have in place? Let's rank them as far as support style. You know, the Read 180 is that tier 3 intervention, and EDGE or EIP or whatever might be that tier 2. And then looking to make sure that our kids are flowing in at the right time and flowing out if they need to. It's not a perfect science or an easy task, but it's something that we're growing and learning about.
But we're matching the children with the learning and not just labeling children of a learning disability or a deficit. All right, we good?
Probably. I'll probably get some other questions
Okay.
here.
So from here on, so all the slides previous to this are reports that we ask principals and leaders to create, to show, to share. Now the rest of the PowerPoint is principal-led discussions. So you can go through those quickly. Student success stories. We're talking about, hey, give us 2 or 3 students that are just like popping it out of there that you're proud of. The biggest thing we want to hear though is why. Why are they being so successful? The same scenario with our special ed, discussion of special ed students. Because again, we want to see the success and we want to see the growth of those students. Next is the content, literacy, math, and social studies. We have a discussion for each content area. What do you need from us? Hey, we have some data that the content coordinator shared with you guys prior to us meeting. And so they have an opportunity to say, you know what, I need some help in math. Or, we've heard numerous times, is there anything else besides Moby Math that we can use for math? So this is conversations that are good for us to hear that our teachers are having with our admin are having with us. Then we always want to go back and look at our advanced learners. Are we differentiating enough? What does your gifted plan look like? How are we meeting those needs? Next. Struggling students. Of course, we're always looking at that. How many students have not gained the Lexile scores that they need? Next. Cultural agility. This has been a huge push for us in our district. So we're constantly saying, hey, how can we support our teachers and our schools with cultural agility? You want to share anything with that?
Well, the professional learning we've gotten this year has been great, and it's kind of we've worked really closely with Ms. Haywood on this and trying to learn and hear, and then kind of make plans about how we're going to move forward with it as a school. So we're still receiving a lot of PL and then making plans about how to move it over.
Okay. Technology, we want to talk about the things that are working, things that are not working, what do you need? And the update on timeline, we're always trying to say these are the schools that are going to be refreshed, this is how many computer labs, how many Chromebooks. We get an inventory really quick on what's in each school. Of course, we talk about safety. There are concerns about that. What do they need? What does it look like? Anything that we need to share with them? This kind of goes with some of the drills as well. And this is probably the principal's favorite because we take their suggestions, their requests, what do you need in your schools from us? And I just, we take it very seriously, so I want you to know We type them out afterwards, and this is all the resources and concerns and suggestions that they need from each school, and we just follow up with each department after the SSR. And that way we can keep up with the principals. Greer said they needed, they had like 20 boards that were broken, I think. So we turned that in. If they needed extra cameras, whatever they need, that's how we address those. Now, that's how we did it in October, correct? All right, so what's going to change and why do we call it, we're going from SSR, School Status Report, to impact checks, because in visible learning, we are growing in our leadership and we are seeing the value of the effect size. And the effect size is about what makes the biggest impact for our students. All right? So we have all these wonderful things going on, but each school is uniquely different. Our principals spend a lot of time pulling data that's already out there. Our goal as a district, because we always have to, as a district office, we need to reflect what can we do better to help the schools and less the burden of the work. And one of the things we really talked about in our curriculum instruction is we don't need our principals remaking charts and graphs for us that the data is already out there that we have. So we pull the data. This is our goal, Carter. We're going to pull the data, and we see the trends. We bring it to them for conversations. So they can, when we have our impact cycles checks, they can get on the computer. You can pull up Lucia, you can pull up whatever you need, and say, you know what, Sinitra may be there with us, and she'll say, you've got a trend going on in 1st grade and 5th grade with attendance. Oh, well, let's pull it up and look at it, and talk about the impact that it's making in instruction. Not just the numbers. We don't want to talk about the numbers only. Same thing with discipline. It may be that we can all sit there and have a conversation. You know what? Your discipline went up 300 children, but we noticed it's only in 3rd grade. So how can we help you in 3rd grade? So we're narrowing down the data because we're data rich, but we want to make sure we use the data to make change, to make the bigger impact that we need. That's how we move schools, and that's how we need to be supported. So a long time ago, when Ms. Bennett and I had to prevent those huge things, it was almost like a presentation that we had to be like on our toes and make it, you know, just right. We want to change that feel to be conversations of what do you need from me? These are the things we see. Share with us what you see, and how can we help you to move forward? Anything you want to add? Okay. And that's where we're going with it.
A quick question. So just as an example, let's say the 20 boards that were down in October, like, so it's March now. Where are we with that? How do you take that and follow up, and where are we in the process of
We just, but, I mean,
repairing or
hopefully-
replacing or whatever?
Yes.
That,
We just,
as
the
an
board
example.
supported, you know, buying
For
all
new
those
boards,
new
right.
boards. They were installed last month. I think I've seen some great.
Yeah, all of ours are installed,
Yeah. Cool.
they're working, we've had professional learning, and they're wonderful.
Good deal.
It's been a great resource from what I've seen so far.
Any other questions?
I mean, the worst thing, and I know y'all know, the worst thing you can do is take a suggestion and put it on the shelf and just go through the process without follow-up, and y'all know that.
But that's what we had it here, and we
Sure.
check them off.
Gotcha.
And it was a great, I mean, that feedback led to that need,
Right.
and that's why we came to you guys, and thank you for that support. All right, thank you, Ms. Lewis. Our next item is winter milestones in the course test. So, Dr. Whitehead?
Good evening, afternoon, again, figuring out time of day, I think. So the winter scores for our 2 high schools for end of course, we tested 7 subjects that are seen on that second slide. We did not test physical science. I know that I'm repeating when I give the reports the last couple of times, but physical science was moved to an 11th grade course, so we're not back. We haven't caught up to ourselves yet with moving that course to have students test yet in numbers that we can report. We may have students who are taking it as a retest or other opportunity right now, but unless we have at least 15 tests, we don't get that report back to share publicly from the state. In all 7 courses that we did test, however, in December, all 7 of those courses for those levels 3 and 4, which the state has designated as college and career ready, we outpaced RESA and the state for that level, that higher level. And then again, as we look at each level 1 through 4, of course we want to take a look at where we're advancing students in those higher levels for level 4. And 5 of the 7 we were above the RESA and the state for that level 4. And then we were in geometry higher than RESA. And then, again, wanting to make sure we're moving students out of that bottom beginning learner stage, which is level 1. We had a lower level 1 percentage, which is what we do want to see for sure in all 7 areas as well. So we're pushing them up to the higher ends and removing as many as we can from that lowest bar in the assessments. And so the results were definitely positive from winter. One thing that I will note, taking a look at this, is that especially for economics and American Lit, if you go in and start looking at the trend data on the following slides, one of the things that we're starting to take a look at potential impact of reducing testing, our students who were dual enrollment and AP, who were taking content-related courses for those end-of-course assessments. Previously, they tested the end-of-course assessments, so we had those advanced learner scores included in our breakdown in previous years. As of this year, we don't have those students testing. So the scores you're seeing are just for students who aren't participating in AP or college courses. So it's cut down in some of the numbers, the students that we're actually reporting scores on. So that's just an interesting piece of looking at it. I know that I recently was in a discussion with the department heads from Brunswick High, and in looking at their data, particularly in economics, they were able to go in and try to extract students that would have been taking the econ test, and their historical data, they did see a decline in their scores overall. So even year to year, even though it's in this slide presentation, we may not be comparing apples to apples for those 2 courses because those students are not testing any longer. And then a potential impact, if you haven't heard, the state legislature is passing, seems to be definitely gathering momentum through both houses, that they're going to reduce testing further, starting in FY21, and if that passes and is signed by the governor, which he's the one that initiated the legislation this time for moving it through, it will reduce us down so that there will only be 5 high school courses that will be tested for end of course. And our elementary students will no longer take social studies exams and end of grade. So we're going to see a further reduction in testing moving into next year. The scores on the following slides, again, just giving that narrative of the value that they will come back for on CCRPI. And if you move, Chris, starting on page 6, slide 6, we'll have the breakdowns, giving you those levels 3 and 4 from 2014 through 19. And then that's by school, the system, RESA, and the state, and then the following slides for each content area breakdown, levels 1 through 4, so that you can see that difference. If you don't mind the next slide, Chris, just to give a point of comparison. The slides are starting to get bulky with years, but I did think it was interesting to go in and start looking at where we were in 14, particularly with our level 4 learners. So if you look in 14 and see those small percentages have now grown by the time we've moved to 19 in those upper levels, particularly for 9th grade lit with our reading and ELA that is measured there. And it goes along with the trend data we've been seeing in our increases in Lexile for those students moving forward. So I don't know if you have any other questions about the additional slides. Again, the algebra slide has a reminder that the algebra data that you're looking at is going to be for students that are not, again, your advanced math students. So the fact that our schools are doing so well in algebra, our advanced algebra students, advanced math students, take Algebra 1 as 8th graders. So these are our other students that are coming through high school beyond middle school. So it's showing their middle school prep on top of some strong instruction at both schools. And I also, in this particular slide, seeing the consistency that we're building across the system. So
Why the slight dip in the American Lit and Comp? And I apologize if you said it already. I was scrolling through.
there seems to be a correlation with students that are taking AP and dual enrollment who are no longer testing.
Okay, gotcha.
Those dual enrollment students that are taking English at the college, or the AP Lang students
Yeah.
previously would have taken the the EOC for American Lit, and they're no longer taking that EOC. So we don't have
Gotcha.
those students represented in the data.
Maybe different.
What do y'all recommend, AP or college? I know that's a loaded question.
It is.
Real
It-
easy
it
to ask,
truly-
though.
Yes, it's truly, our hope is that it's truly student dependent, that it's based on what the student is planning to do after high school. And if they're planning, if there's any intention of the student to especially go out of state, you would want them to take AP to guarantee that college credit transferability out of state. But if they're gonna stay in Georgia, and depending what their plans are and which university or college or technical school they may attend, if those are their plans, then the college credit they would earn here would be transferable. Now those, that particular opportunity for dual enrollment is also in the legislature right now to cap the number of hours that they'll be able to take, but it does provide them an opportunity to take those advanced levels of coursework, so.
Any other? I mean, as a district, we have a lot to be proud of. I mean, just looking at the trend and compare, especially when you see the state, how flat they are.
How
in a
do
lot of
we
ways.
plan to maintain, I think it's, I for one don't think all right, maybe we test too much, I don't know. It never has really bothered me, and I've got 4 kids, it's never really bothered me. I think you have to test to see where you are, period.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mistake to not test social studies in elementary school. And so it's nothing against y'all, everybody's professional, everybody does their job, but when, we've seen it for 15 years, when we don't focus on something, the scores drop, and so we just need to make sure we don't lose focus on social studies. Super important, with those elementary school kids.
Yep.
I hate that we're not gonna test it. It
I-
seems like we just got
Well,
around
we-
to testing it.
We've
Now we're
talked
not
about
gonna
that,
test
but-
them,
And we have shared those comments,
Yeah.
to say that we, we're certainly not about thinking a test is the answer to everything, but
No,
we do
sure.
feel like a level of accountability is important. And the other part to me that, I think is important is, especially as we look at this American Lit, that's our seemingly last opportunity at the high school level to get a gauge on our students' literacy skills before they, are leaving us. And for our workforce that are looking to hire, that gives us a way to give them an indication of the preparation our students have. But we're getting to the point where that's gonna be one of the tests that will be cut. So 9th grade would be the last required assessment of ELA skills, and that will be the last opportunity we'll have to capture that unless we institute a district level assessment to give that information to our community about how we're doing with literacy development.
That's what I was gonna ask, is there a way to locally
Yes.
assess progress in these different areas that aren't being tested, just so we don't sweep them under the rug or get left behind?
Yes.
Because
And we need to.
What'll happen in 10 years, we'll all be sitting here, somebody else will be sitting here, and you'll go, why did our SAT scores drop? Oh, yeah,
Yes,
back in
yes.
2000, we dropped.
Yeah.
I'm all
These
for
in the course test,
accountability.
And
Yeah.
that's what's gonna happen.
I understand
Kids will get
people, the
college,
stress, I'm sorry.
No,
Mr.
go
Wells.
ahead. That's
I'm
fine.
sorry, I understand the stress, that goes along with testing, but internally, we need to keep the focus on, in some way that's more formative, maybe less in a big test kind of a thing where we can see where their progress is. I think it's important. I'm a social studies teacher. I think it's a shame that because when we didn't have that testing, everybody's like, all right, what's about on reading? And we're not going to even have social studies today. We're going to cancel that class. I mean, it starts happening very quickly.
Because the pendulum will swing back, which
Yeah.
we didn't test for science and social studies
That's right.
for years and years and years.
That's why they suffered.
And then all of a sudden, let's test for it, and everybody's scores were down here.
Yeah.
So we know that pendulum's going to swing back, so if we stay on top of it now.
That's right. And I think we, as a district, need to have some great discussions around what
Yeah.
that looks like as a district to make sure we are accountable and growing our kids and preparing them. So, but again, right now, they're really good, and we're
Yeah, we are.
proud of them. So-
Let's continue that trend.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Whitehead.
Yeah.
Our next area under supportive learning environment is our facilities update. So, Mr. Boudreau, you'll start with Glynn Academy.
Thank you, Dr. Glynn Academy, science building, right off the bat is still on track. For us to move in June. Things are looking pretty good over there, shaking up nicely. Additional parking, I think we have some things to talk about in the back after the executive session.
Yeah, and we've closed on a couple of properties, and maybe some others we can consider as well.
Make some movement on that. The auxiliary gym, we'd like to bring back the floor plan and just review it one more time with the board, just to make sure that we know what,
I think when there's some questions about auxiliary gym, you know, I don't know what people's vision of that is. You know, this is a big gym. It is bigger than Brunswick High's or Glynn Academy's current gyms, although it is mainly, the purpose was supposed to be for PE, obviously, and support some sports that might go on that may not need a full-fledged, you know, competitive environment as far as like you would at a normal game or something like that. Doesn't mean you can't have competition there like volleyball, some of the smaller sports, but if you're going to have obviously a big major basketball game, you probably wouldn't have it in your auxiliary gym. And so this shows, we're going to show you 3 slides. This one is the full court of a basketball, just a normal basketball court, which is the 84 feet. And so those lines, you know how you've been in a basketball court, they show all the lines, but we just want to highlight them because it's hard to show on a diagram like this. It's going to get lost. So this is slide 1, which is the full court. If you go to the next slide, if you can scroll down, I think it's down.
that's your 2 side courts.
Okay, there you go. There's our 2 side courts that you see on it. Again, we're going to have the 2 goals on each side, so that you have a total of 6 goals, 2 on each end, each end, and then 2 on the side. You've all seen that kind of court. These are all 74, but again, these aren't meant to be competitive necessarily like a game because it's really too tight. But you could hold upward, kind of those kind of games or just practice. I mean, you could do all that at one time, certainly in that kind of an environment. Again, that's just like our normal gyms. Yes, sir.
And to notice, the bleachers are movable, they're on wheels, so
Okay.
you can adjust them for the different court configurations. So
It's a tilt and roll in those dark areas. It's the same number of seats, 270 total seats, in each of the 3 configurations. We've just moved them to different locations.
I'm glad you said that, because I was about to ask a stupid question.
That's it. And then the last slide, if you can get to that one, this is our volleyball courts, the lines on there for that. And again, just the same court, just highlighted what that looks like without all the other lines on there. I know we had some discussion at the last meeting about making one of those like a concession, so we did do that at the top of that slide on the left. That'll be kind of a combo classroom / concession where you can use it and have a roll top probably door and convert that for those kind of competitions that need that. Again, these aren't going to be the major events that you're going to hold in your regular gym, but it can be nice, I think, for those smaller. I've been to those kind of auxiliary gyms where you have wrestling going on and they don't have to have the little table just sitting out there by the court. I think that'll be very nice. Volleyball certainly will be a sport that could be easily supported in this gym. And so there's more room to run and all that just because the bleachers are removable, especially when you have practice and stuff like that, which we can't do in our normal gym. But again, the main thing, this is going to be a very good, obviously, PE kind of a gym, and it's going to be very nice. So want to see if there's any questions about that, or Johnny?
The only other thing we got, the next slide shows those tilt and roll
Okay.
bleachers, and you've seen those, I'm sure, everywhere else, but then they can be rolled out of the facility and put in the storeroom if you don't want them.
We go back to the previous slide, please. Where's the restroom? Oh, there it is in the
There's
middle.
6.
Okay.
you got your pointer.
We gave him a
I
pointer.
think there's 2
Wait,
pointers
I'm
right
sorry.
here.
There's 6 individual toilets and 6 individual toilets. We're assuming that girls are on this side and the boys this side. The PE, there are additional toilet rooms in the toilet adjacent to the locker rooms. So the student toilets are here, the locker room, boys' locker room toilets. There are 6 public toilets that are individual toilets, not gang toilet rooms.
Thank you.
And I need to remind you that the scope of this project is bigger than our original $4 million budget. We will not be able to do this, we don't think, for $4 million. So we need to be prepared for probably $6.5 million to do this the way it's shown.
And we are also adding a new air conditioner for both gyms, not just this gym. So when we replace the build the air conditioner for this new auxiliary gym, it will be big enough to handle the capacity for the other gym, because we need to do that. The way the system works now, from what I understand, it needs to be replaced. So this will be a good time to do that. So that.
It does, and of course, there are other things that we've encountered. In order to meet the code, we need to add handrails up the risers going into the bleachers at Glynn Academy. If you've been to Brunswick High Gym, you'll know that you do, and have handrails in the center of the aisles. They're needed here too, but they were not code when the building was built. They are code now. So there are other issues. The electrical system is,
Yeah, there are two electrical systems on this building. There's a 480 service and a 208 service, and it's just a mess. And the area that holds the air conditioning for the existing gym, it has to be torn down to do this. So we have to figure all that out. It's doable, it's just not cheap.
but the air conditioning and mechanical services basically in the existing gym are 40 years old. Is that correct? Other
20.
than the light.
Yeah, the central AC is 20 years old.
And I didn't mean that. I meant the mechanical systems, the exhaust systems in the,
Oh, yeah,
in the
that-
locker
yeah.
rooms and
Yeah.
the electrical throughout the building, other than the new lighting. So,
But that won't be bid until this summer, right? Until, or maybe a little bit longer, because we got to get through, obviously, the science.
yeah, summer, early fall.
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah,
Okay.
the timing on this, like we discussed, is we'll move into the science building, which is housing the teacher. The portables are housing the teachers for the science building now. So we'll need a couple months to get the portables gone. And then, I mean, theoretically, we're looking at late fall, early winter before we could actually get a whole lot going on this as far as site work and things like that.
I think there would be a site preparation stage to make sure we discover all of the underground utilities and things. There were some gas lines. We think all that is abandoned now, but we'll have to sort through that.
Yeah.
And also get in place the cooling for the existing gym as an early stage in that process.
All right. Any other questions or comments on the auxiliary gym? Okay, thank you, Mr. Boudreau.
Okay, athletic fields, we're down to Edo Miller Lanier football field. That work has been contracted, and due to the scheduling for the spring sports, we've arranged for the contractor to start May 1st. He'll have May, June, and July to finish, and he feels confident he can have that back to us complete August 1st. So that's the current schedule on Edo and Lanier. Altama Elementary School is going along very well. Reported that all the underground geothermal is complete. They've actually started setting door frames and blocks up to the first level on 400 wing. Have two more slabs poured besides that, so he's making pretty good progress. Center for the Arts, we are waiting on an intergovernmental agreement.
You got a little update today.
I can give a little update. I got a call today from Jeff Preston, and he advised me that approximately 2 weeks from now, the state lawyers assigned to this task are redoing or tweaking an intergovernmental agreement. It's not ready to be sent to me for review, but I was told about 2 weeks, at which time I get to look at it, make suggestions, maybe not, but I think by the next board meeting, it'll be presented to you for a vote. That's what I'm expecting. I have not seen it, and certainly if there are changes to be made and I have input, I'll give them, but the final decision, of course, is the board's. So I hope for the April meeting we'll have that accomplished.
Okay.
Okay. East Bluffs 4.
Do they have a handout for this, or did we put, do y'all have a handout for that? This part?
I think so.
I'm sorry. I've got a copy of it. I will go make you a copy.
Special.
If somebody can make a copy of this for our board, and we'll post it on there as well. I'd appreciate it. Do you mind, Dr. Whitehead? It shouldn't take that long. It's very similar to what you've seen. It does have the values on here. So we'll go to the GOOD report and come back to that in just a second. So GOOD report, if you don't mind, sir, that'd be great.
Not a problem. So on page 1 here, as you can see, all East Splash 2 projects have been moved to closeout. We do, all state capital outlay funds have been applied for, should come in at subsequent time totaling over $4 million plus in that area. Going to page 2. Oh, exactly. Page 2. Burroughs Millette final contractor payment is being processed and will be moved to the completed list next month. And the auxiliary gym will be added to the new active project listings, as we were just discussing that. And next page. Revenue still exceeds budget this month. February is typically a lower month, but it still has allowed us to see a surplus this month. The next coming months are, to be determined based upon any impact that you guys will be discussing in travel and other elements that may prove to be up or down. Historically, they've been a little more lower, but we'll just have to look at that. I'm sure you guys will get to see it on the agenda there later on. Any reactions to that? We still have a great reserve of over $6 million. That's enough funds that are in the technology and renovation budget, and are committed will be applied to future projects in other areas. And the next page. You can see throughout the program, revenue has continued to exceed the forecast, and we don't expect that to change any other way. Any questions?
So for East Bloss 2, was there any overage?
There is going to be some overage, and that can still be utilized against other projects as necessary.
Is that part of the excess budget that we have now?
It's 2 separate pots.
Okay, that's what I was.
They're 2 separate things.
So as soon as we're done paying off the stuff we're doing at the stadium and, what else is going on? Anything for Burroughs Millette, and then we had architecture fees for science in that. As soon as we're done paying for the projects that are going on right now and pretty much, wrapping up, then we'll determine the dollar amount and, go to the ballot question and see. Most likely there'll be some kind of renovation.
These for the
Oh,
audience
and the
too.
roofs.
I don't know if you have enough.
For the roofs, so. And I'm still waiting on state funds.
There should be extras. We can give it to audience, media.
There should be a small balance left in that to be able to,
Sounds like we're doing really well there.
yeah.
Thank you.
Lots of good news on that front. The East Bloss should be coming around. We've got extras if our media wants one as well, so we'll make sure you get a copy of that. All right, so this is nothing, this is a pretty familiar document with our board. As you know, in November, we started off with the more or less the left side in the project list, which was just a list of the projects. Last month, we took them out and kind of put a details to that, which is that third column that says detail, and you see new construction down to the different letters of the alphabet. And then this month, what we've done is we put them into tiers, which are kind of more or less from most extensive or expensive and prioritized to least. And so the first two under Tier 1 are, of course, the replacement of Glendale Elementary, and then St. Simon's. And so you see, for those two projects, we have a budget of $48 million for those. We feel like that's enough with a little bit of room for some contingencies and inflation that might occur. And those would be bonded projects that we would do right away with East Bloss 4. And then you see mostly the remainder of the projects in Tier 2, and those are somewhat pay-as-you-go, but starting with Golden Isles and working our way down, maybe not quite in the same order, but from the most extensive on down. We put the years, and a lot of people don't know sometimes how long and old some of those schools are. But again, for those schools, we have put a value of $52 million for those modifications for those schools and renovations. And again, we feel like that allows for some room just for some contingencies and unexpected expenses that might occur there. And then the last group is buses, transportation, extending the paving yard, and that's maybe some athletics, some lights, sports turf, and we've assigned $5 million for that. And again, we feel like this is a comfortable. I know that was asked last time. We have projected that being 105. As you know, if this SPLOST were to occur, we would hit that somewhere in year 4, potentially maybe 4.5 years. And again, we don't know how the economy will do, but if we were to go maximum, we could do that. But we felt like this honored just what we think is needed with some room for, again, unexpected things, and just kind of values the fact that we're limiting it, and that when we hit that 105, that the East Bluffs at that point would stop, and we would stop collections at that point, whenever that might occur. But again, we feel comfortable with this list, and with your approval, this is not anything to vote on yet. We're still providing this as information. Potentially next month, you could vote on this list as our list for East Bluffs, and then we can start working on the bond language. We're well ahead of the schedule. I do have a timeline on the second page you can see, and I'll take questions here in a second, but the little red balloon is where we kind of started last year, talking to our community and schools about maybe some of their needs. What we're in now is kind of that second bullet there, where in November we provided the initial list. Of course, last month we gave some more details, and in March of 20, we're giving you the cost estimates that we have. And then you can see in the next, and that should not be fall, spring, that really should be spring, summer, and I've got a little thing because I had a little note to change that, but we'll make sure that gets updated. But that would be time in the spring and early summer to develop the bond language with the bonding company and all that, and have that ready to go. We have to have this no later than August 5th for first publication, so again, we're well ahead of schedule, I feel like. And then, of course, in the summer, starting maybe in July or August, you can even start the campaign that early for the voting. With early elections, you see the early voting starts on October 12th, with the election November 3rd, and there's several notes about, all the different items that go along with that. So here's a timeline. And again, I think we're well ahead of schedule. We've been presenting kind of the same list and kind of the same format, more or less, since really November. And so any questions or concerns or that you might have about what we're doing so far?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And it kind of stems from what Ms. Lewis was talking about with the impact cycles and asking the schools what they need and the technology needs.
Mm-hmm.
Do we rely on the East Bluffs for the technology refresh?
We haven't
Not
really.
for PCs, but for the Promethean boards, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I just didn't see anything in this East Bluffs for that.
It's all throughout this. It's
And so
technology.
the technology's L.
It's within
Right.
the school.
L
Okay,
is the
I'm
technology.
sorry.
It's
I was
okay.
looking for the one line item.
Yeah.
I forgot
It's all
there was one
merged
down
in
there.
each school.
We've kind of merged it into all the schools,
Okay,
and
I
that's
see it.
as a letter.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
The two elementary schools, it's like 22 million to build an elementary school.
And it's
There
been
has
more than
been.
that lately with geothermal. I think you're
Burroughs is 28, Alabama's 25.
so about 2 years from now, you might be looking at 30.
It's crazy, it's just going crazy.
I mean, I think everybody's kind of experiencing that lack of workers, and everything's just gone very high. But of course, we take questions are later as well. But this is where we're at today. Again, we're hoping that maybe you can vote on this slate, if you will, next month, and then we can start working even as early as April, May, to start working on the bond language. I feel really good where we're at and what we've been doing on this work. And I presented this to several people in the community and to get questions or comments, and I've gotten really good feedback on it so far. So that, again, is just another item of information for our facilities. Any other questions about East Bluffs 4? That was all we had for facilities. Our next area is bus patrol stop arm. One area that we've seen some dangerous situations is cars going around buses when they've got the arm completely out. And so the Transportation instituted like a pilot from a company. Some statistics are a little scary. It's a scary situation when you have issues like that. So I'll turn over to Dr. Simmons and Mr. Boudreau for that.
The slide that we have gives you some information about the pilot that we participated in. We initially started in December, and we're only looking at about a 2-week period. And during that time, you can see in December the number of stop arm violations. Those violations are
Take somebody's after you.
that the bus is completely stopped, the stop arm and the crossing gate have both been extended, and then a vehicle passes the bus. The software will allow the company to review those for us should we decide to move forward. We were only going to use December as the initial pilot, but the hardware is still on the buses, so they're still able to report for us. So we've had a total of about 149 violations since we've had those on the buses, and it's only 2 buses.
Oh, so 149 in 4 months?
Sir?
In 4 months? That many?
Yes, so
Wow.
November technically wasn't a part of the pilot, that they had the hardware on the bus, but we actually started the pilot in December.
Wow.
Under 40 something.
2.
And that's 2 out of, what's our fleet?
138.
Wow.
So
Wow.
what we're hoping to do is to move forward with the program. The company will pay for all of the hardware, and so it won't cost the district anything. But there is a split of proceeds from the violations, and that's where we would work with the county to make sure, we've talked with law enforcement in the county to make sure everybody understands what we hope to do. And that will, again, will require another MOU or intergovernmental agreement to make sure everybody's clear about who gets what proceeds and how that's divided. The monies that will come to the district will have to be used for safety. So that's the stipulation that they make. It won't allow us to do anything else with it. So we would look at some of our additional needs. It would allow us to upgrade the current cameras on the buses. They do have technology now that allows for cameras to be placed on the top of the bus to capture the right side of the bus, which is a blind side for us. And in our recent meeting this morning, we were discussing a county that has had a child struck on the right side where a person decided to go around on the right side of the bus. We do teach the kids to look, but sometimes things happen very quickly. So that software that they were providing, the hardware that they would provide, would all come to the district through their install. And we're looking at possibly a 3 to 5 year agreement with the company, but it wouldn't cost us, again, anything should we decide to move forward.
Just to be clear, and we had this in the county, in Henry County for several years before I got here. You know, this is a third party that comes in, puts that software and all that hardware on your buses, and they do all the work as far as screening, and then they give you that first batch. It's got to go to the transportation, and you have to get an agreement with the law enforcement because they have some part in that. They get some of the proceeds as well. It wasn't some big money maker for us at all, but it did go to safety, and it did help. We had a child get hit. It's been several years ago, but and so that was some of the impetus about that. So this has been around for several years. I know there's been a new movement to do speed zones and stuff like that. I'm not really comfortable with that so far. But I think stop bar violations are of the nature that it is scary, and I don't think, I think the perception of that's a lot different than maybe just putting a camera in a speed zone around a school, although that's a concern as well at times. But anyway, so all we're doing so far is just letting you know that we're going to be working with this company, and may potentially working on an MOU with the county or the sheriff's department to help us enforce that. And then before obviously we do anything, y'all have to vote on that MOU and see all that language. But we just want to get your thoughts or comments on that where we're at right now. But it is alarming when you see stuff like that for just 2 buses for a little over 2 months, really. It's definitely a clear safety issue, unlike a lot of other things that we see sometimes with traffic enforcement.
What are some of the violations, Dr. Summer? The violations, what do they range from? I mean, what, going around the bus, speeding past?
Most occur on the left side.
Okay.
The way we have been asked to create stops and to have the drivers load and unload, we're working very hard to move the bus as close as we can to the curb on the right side. But we still have people who find inventive ways to come around. We're looking at areas, everybody's familiar with Community Road and Cypress Mill.
Yeah.
That's one place that we're seeing because you've got the painted median, and you still have some people that are confused about when do I stop, when don't I stop. 341 is another example. By law, everyone on 341 is supposed to stop when the bus stops and the stop arm comes out because it's a painted median. 17, where it's a dirt median, Highway 82, where it's a dirt median, on opposite sides of the road, you don't have to stop. So before the program, if it should be implemented, before it's implemented, there's a big public information campaign.
I was going to be my next question. Do they pay for that as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And they support us with suggestions from what they've done in other places. And they spend a lot of time trying to make sure that everybody gets the word that we're going to do something like this and make sure they understand. So the impact that they found in other areas, they've changed the language a little bit, so the impact now comes when you try to renew the registration. So if you choose not to pay that citation, when you try to renew, that's when you're prohibited from doing it.
There's no points, it's just like a civil fine, basically.
So it's the camera, is the one that's getting the tag?
Yes, ma'am. The company that we're working with now can, from the position that the bus is in, can video 5 lanes over.
Okay.
So we don't quite have 5 lanes anywhere close, but we're close. 341 is pretty wide, but you're able to see that, and they work through the actual screening process to make sure that you can, if you can't see that individual, that they have a process in place to try to work through who's actually awarded that citation.
Okay, thank you.
If this is something we think we want to move forward on, we'd like to move fairly quickly, because with the summer sneaking up on us in a hurry, that's when this equipment needs to be installed in the buses. It's going to be a pretty big job, so if we think we want to move forward, we can certainly get busy with it.
What are the fines typically?
$250.
$250.
Ooh,
That'll slow you down after getting one of those.
that's right.
Won't pass that bus again.
They're passing the bus with the star program, is that right?
How about, how's it split? I know different, like even going over the speed zone thing, we've had this discussion with all the sheriff's office in the county, and I know there's certain ways they split it. Is it third, and third, or
Well,
is they?
The company will get the bulk of the proceeds because they're paying the cost of the hardware up front.
Right.
So we don't have any initial costs as it relates to the hardware, so they'll get the bulk of that. And then if the county decides that they want a portion of that proceeds, then we'd have to work through that. The city also, we've talked with them, and based on what we've been told with those representatives that we've met with, they're not interested in any of the proceeds.
Okay.
So if that's the case, once we actually talk with other representatives from the county and the city, then it will be the company and the school system.
Okay.
And we'd also have the option, I think, to upgrade some of our
Yes.
existing cameras, and that would affect the split also. They'd have to recoup their costs for new cameras and things like that. But, I mean, this is all geared towards safety, and,
Right.
you know, if you have to spend the proceeds on safety, why not have good cameras? So that's something we'll look at.
How about the edge-log system and all that? Does that fall underneath safety, or it doesn't? Because that was an expense for sure, and it's probably going to be a continued
We
expense.
might be able to figure out.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
GPS probably. for
My
sure.
thing is just future down the road. I mean, that would help with some of those future costs with that.
Yeah, that's a good
Just
point.
thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll keep you in the loop. Again, we're just early in this, but this was some information we got and wanted to share it with you before we went too far. Thank you, Dr. Simmons.
Well, if we want to do it before summer, we need to,
Well,
the
they'll-
MOU needs to start being prepared.
Yeah.
If that's going to be 3 different entities, we're going to have to really
Yes, sir.
get it rolling, because they're going to have something they want to say or add, and we're not meeting a whole lot between now and summer, so, right.
We'll
That's
we'll
my
get on it.
point.
We'll
Yeah.
get on it.
So I'd
That's
recommend,
consensus. We'll get started on
go
it.
ahead. I mean, I don't have an issue with it, I don't know the rest of the board, but obviously it's not a voting meeting, but I'd recommend go ahead and start the MOU process and bring it back to us for the next
We'll do our best to get back at the next
voting
meeting. Yes, sir.
and let's see what we can.
And we reached out to representatives from the county and the city, and we haven't gotten a response. There may have been other mitigating circumstances, so we're going to follow up now with a little more zeal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Appreciate
Simmons.
Very tight.
All right, the next area is our Risley Early College Academy, RECA. So Ms. Haywood.
We're not in all.
Good evening to the board and Dr. Cole. I was asked to come and give you all an update on the RECA students. You recall we talked back in July of 2018 about the status of students, because at that point our last class of students had graduated. And so at the conclusion of the program in May of 2012, we had 298 students that were actually enrolled. And through following them throughout the years, very happy to report that there were 237 students that graduated from us, from Glynn County Schools. We did lose students along the way, so we had 240 students in total that remained with us, 3 of which 2 we lost through expulsion and 1 through incarceration. But because of the relationship with families, I'm able to find out about what's happening with many of those students. And the two that were expelled, one did receive her GED, another one received her high school diploma through an online school. And talked with her mother earlier this week. She just graduated from basic training and will be home soon. She's in the Navy and she'll be reassigned in San Diego. So I would say in total the program had a, I believe, a profound impact on the students who were enrolled during that time. And to give you just some historical, the school opened in 2007 and concluded 2012. But just excited to know that students have done well. We've got a couple of students that are enrolled in medical school. We had a young lady that was actually crowned, I think she was the 67th Miss Savannah State University. So a lot of success stories from Reka. And so again, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I believe that the program really had a profound impact on the lives of the students who were enrolled and the families who participated and were a part of Reka during its time. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
That's good news to me. I made a commitment years ago when we did close the schools that I would make sure that I brought it to the forefront and try to do it every year to make sure at least we knew where the kids were going, because it was such an issue. And I just wanted to make sure to continue to see that there was a lot of growth from it. And I come to find out how well they're doing. That's a good thing, and it's, might be something we want to look at in the future. But I just wanted to make sure those kids were taken care of and at least looked at, and knowing they weren't forgotten, because that's what typically happens. So, thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Haywood. Our last item information is, of course, a big topic around the world is COVID-19. As I think you're aware, earlier this week we met with the health department, local officials, and had a really good meeting. I think creating those lines of communication with us is very important. We provided them with a draft of our plan for the possible pandemic and before and after if it were to occur. They were very, I think, thought it was good and very supportive of it, gave some good suggestions for things that we changed. We shared it with our principals as well. And so we'll continue to talk about that. We've got, of course, our principals meeting next week, so that'll be some portion of that. A lot of moving parts. This is obviously changing. You can see the districts and systems it's affecting around our country even. So something to obviously be paying a lot of attention to. We have been, just like we do every year through flu season, and this is not the flu, obviously, but it acts like it in some ways. Clean in a more deep fashion than we normally do. So we've been doing that, and we actually started talking about this virus probably right after we got back from the new year. So maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe 7 weeks ago, we started just seeing that potential. Viruses typically don't stop at borders. It was going to probably get here, so here we are. And so it's obviously been ramped up. We're trying to be as proactive as possible with that and just be as on top of it as we can. But we know that this is going to affect attendance, bless you. And we're trying to create some flexibility with our families that may affect our attendance rates. We don't want to have a child dragging herself to school because of a certificate or because of getting some award or exemption. So that relaxation, I think, is important for our families to have that. And we're working with our schools to do that. Field trips, providing possibly the opportunity to being reimbursed. Parents don't want to go. There may be calls that we have to make in the future that start canceling. We're not there yet. Hopefully we won't be. But those are, a couple of areas just that right off the top that are something that's going to impact us for sure. Hopefully won't be closed or anything like that, but we're trying to also think ahead if we get to that point what we could do, even at some kind of a distance learning situation if it gets to that where we order or make some call to do that. Again, hopefully we're not. Of course, when we do close schools, as y'all know, it has a huge impact on our community. People have to work. We're expecting our first responders to be working and other vital functions. I think we're falling in that category in a lot of ways. Our children rely on us to get not only education, which is probably really definitely important, but food in some cases and other means. And that affects the parents' ability to support our society and community. That doesn't mean if we get to the point where our attendance rates start really skyrocketing or something's going through here that we don't make a call, because we obviously need to have a safe school. And so that's where we're at. So any questions that you might have or comments, we're certainly happy to entertain that at this time.
Just know that the GSBA and NSBA are issuing advice too that y'all are monitoring.
Yes,
so, because I mean, it not only affects our area potentially, but nationally. And they're
Absolutely.
all thinking and making recommendations too. So.
We're getting advice from a lot of different places, obviously, and CDC on down to the local department and GSBA and others. Most of it really focuses, as I mentioned in the paper, about just cleaning. I mean, that's basically that's first line of defense is doing that kind of just good hygiene and cleaning. And our buses, we've ramped up some of our cleaning, our keyboards, just thinking about it in a more conscious way. Hopefully our schools are doing that as well right now. So that's important for us to do that and focus on that as not just here, but as a community. That's a very important aspect of slowing this down, at least, until maybe there's a better vaccine or something. I really worry about our, older, that's really our retirement homes are a big area of concern because it seems to really be a lot more impactful for people that have some pre-existing conditions that are a little bit older.
I guess I'd be remiss to say that any elementary teacher out there probably would suggest if anybody would like to donate any Clorox wipes, tissues,
Yes,
or
that's right.
anything, feel free to partner with the elementary school teacher, especially the special ed with the high risk population out there. Fortunately, we do have a low risk here as far as the virus, but we will always want to have a safe, sterile, clean environment. So, yeah, if anybody can donate, we'd be glad to have
Absolutely.
have them.
And I'm glad you brought up special ed. That is an area we need to focus on because there could be some students that already have some pre-existing health conditions that would be impacted. And so what flexibility, if it gets close, do we start allowing some homeschool or, supporting them in a different way? I don't think we need to wait. So we're already talking about that as a school district because some of those students, any of that would be pretty potentially not very good. So anyway.
If there's a way to identify the parents of kids that work at the port, that's your biggest liability.
The port person was here. I mean, I don't know if you saw the article. They feel pretty good because they deal with this all the time apparently, and they are cleaning. But you're right, that is a concern. But they feel like they have pretty good first, warning systems that are involved there, and do a good job of cleaning with their workers because that's a threat, bringing in those kind of hazardous bio, you name it, materials kind of things on a daily basis. All right, well, I'm sure there'll be more to come on that one, but a lot of prayers for everybody, not just here, around the country and the world on that for sure. The next area is proposed action items. And so we have a few things real quick. First one off the bat, which Ms. Preston mentioned a little bit, but our review of our financial report for January.
Right, so for January, we had several budget amendments that affected the overall budgeted revenues and expenses for the general fund, and mainly it was some cleanup work. We have several grants out there that we had gotten in the past and needed to come out of the budget. First one was $1,100 for United Way after school grant, and that grant has expired and the budget needs to go away. Also need to remove the Momentous and Jumpstart grants, $143,200. A small grant where someone donated money to the Jackson Learning Center. That money needs to be removed, as well as money for a summer reading program and a Coastal Symphony donation budget needs to be removed from the general fund. Their year-to-date revenues represent 78.5% of the budget, and local tax receipts for January were a little over $2.1 million. Year-to-date expenses represent 53.5% of the budget, and we are right at 58.33% through the year. So there you go. Our expenses are lagging behind budget again, and a lot of that has to do with the expense category of salaries and benefits. If you look at the third page in, you'll see that we are about 53.6% spent of 55% of the budget. So for salaries and 53% for benefits. So we're going to have a little bit of savings again this year, like last year. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Preston. I think you have the next couple items here, but the computer purchase for Glynn Academy Science Building, obviously, we're renovating that at this time. So
That is for a new science building to equip it with computers off statewide contract for Dell.
can you blow that up, guys?
$141,000. 2008-22-04.
Okay, there you go.
27.
827 and 4 cents.
827-04.
Yeah, it's a bottom.
It's at the bottom.
It's right there at the recommendation.
Need some glasses out. So this will be for your, consideration on Tuesday to award that contract to Dell. Again, that's off the state contract list, and that's for the new renovated science building for next year. Any questions on that? Okay, thank you, Ms. Preston. Next is a renewal for Edgenuity for next year, which is kind of a yearly thing we do.
Bill E. 2020, we call it Ingenuity now. It's our annual renewal.
How much is the amount of this? Go on down, guys.
95,000.
95.7.
Is that slowly going down throughout the years?
Nah,
No?
actually, it stayed the same for, 10+ years, and this year it went up just a little bit, probably $2,500, something like that, because we added some more, classes in the library. The digital library, we added some CPE classes in there, so, for the first time since we implemented it, it went up.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you on that one. Again, that's for your consideration on Tuesday. Next is a review of our Frontline. Again, another one of these annual renewals, Ms. Bennett, for Frontline.
Yeah, and I think that page, the second page is more helpful. We've had the absence and substitute management. We've had that for years. That's just one of the packages from this company. And 2017-2018 school year, we discontinued using Monocular. Remember that, our online service for applications where people can upload information, resumes. And so we started that in 2017-2018, and we had a 3-year locked-in rate, and it let us know to expect a 2 to 5% increase when we finished our initial 3 years. And there was an increase from 15,071 to 15,800 for the applicant tracking for the new monocular, and that was just under a 5% increase. So what we expected. So the total of this one is 30,516.
66 cents. So that will be up for our your approval on Tuesday, unless you have any questions. Okay, thank you, Ms. Bennett. Next item is the Glynn Academy Science Building renovation security cameras. So, Ms. Preston are on that one as well.
So again, we went with statewide contract with Adaptasoft, which we used almost everywhere, I think. $30,797.44.
So for these science building projects, are they falling within the budget that was planned for the items that are being purchased?
No, we're actually gonna have to take some of the technology money line item and move it into the science project to cover, probably about $500,000 for all the technology, the Promethean boards, the computers, the switches. So it's all East Plus 3, but we're gonna do a budget amendment out of the technology category that we've been putting the excess.
Put it in science.
Put it in science.
Want to track it with science.
Yeah, I wanted to show the total cost of the science project. If you put all this technology in the technology category, then you don't know the true cost of what the science building was. So.
Any other questions for that one? Okay, again, that will be on for Tuesday. Next item is for the filters. Mr. Boudreau.
Right. I think I mentioned a few months ago that the filter changing vendor we had changed hands and kind of abruptly dumped us. We've had it for 12 years. He never raised his price, but anyway, we went out to bid and had some good results. The recommendation is for the low proposer, Carolina Filters, to be awarded the contract $9,569 per change out. We do 5 change outs a year for a total of $47,845 a year. That's a heck of a deal. That's a heck of a deal. We had to do one in-house change out. Just the filter material itself cost us $6,000. So this is a pretty good value. It's a little more than what we paid last year. Last year we paid $36,000, but we've been paying that for 12 years and never raised their price. So this is still, I think, a very good value.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boudreau.
Did Comfort Systems get the wrong email or something?
I know, I was about to say that's.
You know, they had all kind of
Extra
problems.
Jeez,
They
jeez.
didn't, the bid package wasn't complete. I figured even if he was off a decimal point, it still wouldn't have mattered. So.
He's in another
Left him
planet.
alone.
All right, next item is surplus Casio projectors, Ms. Preston.
So back in 2012, even though the new I think says 2013, but it was actually 2012. It was the year that we skipped our PC refresh because we went from refreshing our computers every 3 years to 4 years to make them last a little bit longer. So in the year that we skipped, we replaced all projectors with LEDs instead of the bulbs that were costing out the wazoo. But now, with the 140 Promethean boards that we got, those are all coming out of classrooms when the Promethean boards go in. And we've kept about 30 on hand, just in case, you know, for inventory, in case the ones that are still out there need to be replaced. But we would like to surplus these, and we're gonna do like we do with the PCs and bid out all 140 in one package and hopefully get a little bit back from them.
Do we know how many smart boards we still have out there?
I do not off the top of my head, but we have a lot.
So we feel
need these
comfortable,
lots for.
but we feel comfortable letting go of these projectors instead of them
Yeah,
being a
we're
backup for
keeping-
what we have?
These were the,
Those classrooms have, with smart boards, have LEDs now.
Right, right.
So the ones that we're keeping on hand are just in case the ones that go out, but they feel comfortable with the inventory that they're keeping.
they went through all of them and looked at the ones that they're best condition and kept
Yeah.
those, and then these
They
are the
feel
ones
like
that
they're
are
keeping
either
it up.
broken
Yeah,
or
they feel like
barely
they're
hanging on, so.
Okay.
Hopefully, we're gonna continue to replace the smart boards with Promethean boards with the technology base that we have, but that's about to get cut into.
Thank you. Next two items are about some furniture. One's for the classrooms. Mr. Boudreau, I'll let you take the next two.
The next item is the classroom furniture, out straight bid. Georgia Specialty Equipment was low bidder. They're the outfit that has done all of our classroom furniture since business, so that was 2007, no, 12, anyway, for quite a while. So we'll have some continuity when it comes to classroom furniture with this award for $148,730.65.
You want to just go to the next one, which is the media center,
The
and the
Media Center, this is our sole source vendor we've been using since, for the last 14 years for our teacher desks and bookshelves and media center furniture. So this would be to outfit the new media center with bookshelves, teacher desks, and bookcases for the classrooms for a total of $93,753.69.
any questions about the last two items? Again, those will be repeating this, but for Tuesday for your consideration. Unless there's any other further questions, that is all the items we have for proposed action items. Mr. Ed, oh, sorry. Copiers, I was getting ahead. All right, Ms. Preston for that one, sorry.
So we refresh our copiers, every 3 years we go out to bid, and I'm happy to say a local vendor go down. One bid, Goldnell's office, 205-411-68. That replaces every copier in the system. Refresh.
Do those come with a service agreement?
Yes.
When you do,
Yes.
Any questions about this last one? That does, I think, conclude all the items we have for proposed action items for Tuesday. Mr. Reggie?
All righty. Thank you, everyone, for presenting all this today. I guess that brings us down to executive session. Making a motion to go into executive session for land, legal, and personnel,
And discipline.
and discipline. Tribunal hearing.
so moved.
Ms. Sams, I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Madalla, Sams, Madalla, all those in favor? It's unanimous. At 5. All righty, thanks, Sarah.
open session.
Oh, good. My grandson,
Motion's on
my
the floor
grandson
there.
has a
Can I
good
get a
friend
second?
there,
Second.
real nice
Second.
kid named
All in
Carson.
favor?
You're missing it.
What? Oh, wait,
We're
you
back
did,
in open session.
I didn't hear it. She
Uh,
didn't either.
Jerry Mansell made the motion.
Okay,
Dr. Jurgen through the second.
okay,
All were in favor.
which is 1 to 6,
At
just 6.
7:41. Alrighty, I guess I'll take, if I can get a motion to affirm the decision made for the discipline tribunal hearing we heard back in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. First by Mr. Mansell, second by Ms. Sands. I'm sorry, Ms. Bobbitt. Any discussion or anything? All in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn. So moved. Dr. Jurgen makes the motion to adjourn. And a
Down, you're
second.
gonna drive Susan crazy.
Second.
Ms. Sams made the second. All in favor? Aye, at 7:42.
Another late one.
Thank you.
Y'all there.